So I'm dreaming of this place. It's Leopold's Book Bar Cafe. It's the dreamiest bookstore, cafe, and cocktail bar combo you'll ever find. And it's right here at 1301 Regent Street. They've got the latest books from around the world, wines to sip or take home, and live jazz, plus open hours until midnight most nights of the week. You can grab a drink or dessert and just kick back at Leopold's.
Today on CityCast Madison. It's the Friday News Roundup. This week I'm joined by CityCast Madison's Molly Stentz. Madison officials say a violent attack on a UW student will not be tolerated. Police have arrested a suspect who's now facing 3 felony charges. We'll also discuss how Republican lawmakers are inching closer to impeaching Justice Janet Protasewicz. It's Friday, September 8th. I'm Dylan Brogan, and here's what Madison's talking about. It's the Great Friday Roundup, and I'm here with the sheriff of this here podcast, Molly Stentz. No fun intro parody today because news this week includes an act of violence in Madison that made national news. Hi, Molly.
Hey, Dylan. Bianca's on assignment, so it's just us today. We can do it.
Yes, we can. So obviously the big news this week, the Madison Police Department says very early Sunday morning, a UW student was physically and sexually assaulted not far from campus at West Wilson and Bedford Streets. So police believe a stranger attacked the student. We have since learned that police had public surveillance footage of a suspect following the victim just prior to the assault. And there was also a call to the public to submit any video footage that might be out there. And as it turned out, that was instrumental in an arrest that was made Wednesday morning. We got more information Wednesday afternoon at a press conference. We know that a suspect has been charged with first-degree sexual assault, first-degree reckless injury, and strangulation. Police say the man who was arrested initially pretended to be an innocent bystander when police arrived the night of the attack.
Oof.
UW Police Chief Kristen Roman, she was at the press conference. Here's what she had to say.
First and foremost, I'd like to express my continued concern for the victim, her family, and those close to her. While there is certainly relief in knowing that with this arrest, any further violence by this same individual has been prevented, I also recognize that sexual violence in all its forms causes lasting harm. And so our focus remains with our student and the significant healing process still ahead of her. As members in community, when senseless violence is inflicted upon one of us, it is inflicted in some way upon all of us. Assaults of this kind are extremely rare here in Madison, but when they do occur, we come together in anger, in sadness, sometimes in fear, but always in support. The violence perpetrated against this young woman Sunday morning was horrific and will not be tolerated.
Also at the press conference, we had Madison Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway. She asked for privacy of the survivor and her family to be respected.
And of course, I want to ask our entire community to be part of the process of preventing sexual violence going forward. We see too much sexual violence in our community. While this particular attack is of a kind that is extremely rare in Madison, it is true that people all across our community experience intimate partner violence, experience sexual harassment, and that is something that every single one of us can do something to prevent. We know that allowing any type of sexual harassment or violence allows escalation into something like this. And so I'll ask our entire community to work with us, to work with public health, to work with UWPD and with MPD to do everything we can to prevent sexual violence in our community. Thank you.
So this happened, as you mentioned, at West Wilson near Bedford, right down the block from where we both used to work at WRT Radio. Reminds me that neighborhood has seen a number of horrific acts of violence. To me, it raises a lot of questions. The first one being, are we doing enough to combat sexual assault in all forms across the city? Now, we heard that clip from UW police chief. UW's involved.
Yeah.
Because the survivor was a UW student. It did not occur on campus. It occurred in the city of Madison.
But very close by, and obviously this affects the UW community, and this happens right at the start of the fall semester.
And we do know from having reported and watched the crime blotter for years that there are an uptick of sexual assaults with every new school year. Now, the stranger danger aspect of this one is, I think, what the mayor was referring to when she said it was rare.
Yeah.
But I don't think that changes the story that it's still far too common in our community for assaults to take place. Now, we know that there have been efforts by the UW, by Madison Police Department, by the city of Madison. We know that there are, things like safe walks, safe rides program, the campus free bus, the blue lights, the text alerts that UW rolls out to students and staff when there are select emergencies. Now they've rolled out a new app, the Safer Badgers app, that's available to anyone, not just staff and students. And we know that they require mandatory educational courses, right? Every student has to take that when they're newly enrolled in the university, about consent and what that looks like. But yet this still happens. So that's what I'm reflecting on this week.
Well, I don't know what I can add to that besides the scary part is a little bit of how powerless maybe all of society is to prevent this, and what do we do to stop something like this? And
are we powerless though?
Well, we need a better society.
Starts every day, one person, one day. We can all take effort. We can all. I don't even feel like this is like a controversial or political statement. I feel like
no,
everyone can take responsibility for their actions. They can take responsibility for those around them, and they can. I mean, I think the conversation has rightly shifted from the years that I've been covering crime in campus in Madison. I mean, not exclusively, but I've seen the shift from the focus on self-defense, which is, of course, important, but to bystander intervention.
Yeah.
Right? That's now what the curriculum is that it's not enough just to teach primarily women to defend themselves, but that everyone in society has a role. Everyone has a role in helping prevent this, because that's a highly I mean, when you talk about this instance in this neighborhood, there's a couple bars right down the street. It's a highly residential area.
I don't think anyone was around, though. I mean, that's what I don't mean to be dismissive about the powerlessness of it, but there's no one around, and everyone should be able to walk down a street no matter what time of day it is and feel safe.
Yeah.
But I think we need better people.
We need better people. Yeah. I mean, the other thing it raises is the power of this surveillance camera network. I mean, that's one thing that I've also seen shift over the years. The growing reliance that MPD has on businesses and residential cameras, right, to be part of their network, which is a mixed bag, right? Obviously, in this case, it really helped.
It's a hard time to speak against a huge surveillance network of cameras all over the city that is now both public and private. But that comes with a lot of other issues too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Privacy. And it didn't have a preventative effect. It just had the ability to actually apprehend someone who is believed to be the suspect.
We will keep you updated as we learn more about what's happening with this story. But before we talk about impeachment, and we're going to talk about impeachment, we're going to take a quick break.
Attorney Z. Usman with Usman Law has helped thousands of folks fight back against abusive debt collectors, and he wants to help you too. His advice? Sit down with a list of all your debts and figure out how long each will take to pay off. You can do this using a debt repayment calculator online or contact Attorney Usman, who offers this service for free. The average interest rate on credit cards today is 25%. So, for example, if you borrowed $10,000, you're really gonna owe a lot more. If you pay $300 a month, it'll take more than 3 years to be done. And that $10K will have cost you $15 in the end. But there's help. To learn the easiest way to pay things off, visit madtownlawyer.com to schedule a free call with Attorney Usman.
Well, in other news this week, I guess we're on impeachment watch over here in Wisconsin.
We should have a sounder.
Oh, what?
Impeachment watch. Bong. Like, because it's happening so often to talk about this. Like, it kind of seemed a couple of weeks ago, like this impeachment of a Supreme Court justice before she's ruled on a single case was kind of like pie in the sky. But every day it seems like it's getting more and more real.
Yeah. I mean, you could say that the battle between our major political parties is, has kicked it up just a notch. I mean, or if you're Ben Wickler, the chair of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, as he put it, Republicans are holding a political nuclear football.
It seems like a mixed metaphor there, but okay, Ben Wickler.
Are they going to go nuclear? Are they going to use this thing that you can't take back, that you unleash? I get the metaphor. But okay, just to recap, in case you have, been blissfully on a summer vacation off on a lake in the woods, somewhere ignoring the hellscape that is Wisconsin politics. What to say about that?
Oh, come on. It's a little bit fun. Not for necessarily a well-tuned, clean government aspect. But
yeah, I don't know how much fun it is.
It's fun for us. Yeah. So, okay. Well, it all goes back to redistricting,
yeah.
Right? And what Justice, newly elected Justice Protasiewicz said on the campaign trail. And Republicans were like, hey, she called the maps rigged. She can't rule on this case.
So, for those scoring at home, we all know Supreme Court justices are technically nonpartisan, right? But we do know they get support from the major political parties. And we know that recusals have been an issue for years, mostly with Democratic-backed candidates, liberal candidates, asking for their colleagues to recuse themselves on cases. And we know recusal means that they not weigh in on a particular case. Usually, technically it was reserved for, oh, I was a lawyer on that case, or, oh, I'm married to a partner in that firm that's arguing the case, right? There's like some very straight line that connects you to that case that would require you to remove yourself from that decision because you got personal or financial interests, right? That's usually what we mean by recusal. But in past case, it's come up in political conversations because of financial ties. Maybe that a party to the case financed your opponent or something like that, or you had, some kind of backing. There's been a whole suite of those questions raised over the years. And now kind of the shoe's on the other foot, right? Now Republicans are saying, actually, we think Protasiewicz should recuse herself from redistricting because she has a conflict of interest in that she said how she's going to rule. She said the maps are rigged. We know what she's going to do here. We know she's prejudiced. That's the argument.
But au contraire, though. Okay?
That's the argument.
She was pretty careful, though.
But that's the argument Robin Voss is making.
Sure.
You can debate him, but that is what he's saying.
Well, she didn't say how she would rule. She said the maps were rigged. And is that a fact? Is that a personal viewpoint? Or is that saying you're going to vote a certain way on a case? I think it is an important distinction.
Yeah, she did not say, she did not make a pledge or a promise on how she would rule.
Because that's unethical.
And you don't know what the case is going to be. They're supposed to rule on the set of facts and circumstances that are before them, and you can't invent those.
But it does look like Robin Vos is moving forward, and quite frankly, he doesn't even need a good reason. They can just do it, and they have the numbers. It's tight in the Senate, but they got the numbers to do it. This is completely uncharted territory, right?
It is, but here's the thing. Okay, so the way impeachment works here in the state of Wisconsin, similarly, that we all have learned on the federal level, is that it starts in the assembly, right? The assembly needs just a simple majority, so they need 50 votes to impeach. And then, right, 50 out of 99,
They have 64 seats.
Republicans have a clear majority in the assembly and could easily do that. Then what happens, right, is then it gets kicked over to the Senate, it gets sent to the Senate for a trial. And if the officer is convicted by the Senate, by a 2/3 majority in the Senate, then they're removed from office. There's no penalties or criminal charges. It's just a removal from office. But the rub, and here's the rub, the official can't do their job if they've been impeached by the assembly. So it's not that we have to wait for this to go through the whole system. It's that if the assembly moves, they're off the case. They're off the clock. So they could, in essence, not send it to trial, not send it to the Senate. They could vote to impeach with one vote, get 50 votes, and it'd be done. Now, what the law says is that a person can be impeached for corrupt conduct in office or for committing a crime.
Yeah. But the legislature gets to decide what they view as corrupt.
Yeah. The question is of timing, right? Of when the redistricting, which is obviously the big case, but also abortion, when these cases would be heard by the Supreme Court, and if they can hold it in kind of stasis, being down one judge for months, which they could do by impeaching in the assembly and not sending to the Senate, we could be down a justice for months.
That seems like the weirdest possible outcome. That would go to court. And then what would happen? I mean, we don't really know.
This is uncharted territory, which is why we are just on daily impeachment watch to see what happens. And that's why it's being referred to as a nuclear option, because this is a pretty big and bold, severe and unprecedented step. And also one that ups the ante, right? That's what we see is that the Democrats are really showing up with a lot of money, bringing millions to this fight and kind of starting an ad war offensive to fight the Republicans on this.
To make it damaging politically, yeah.
Yeah, something that I don't think you've seen in past years, like quite this hard a fight from Democrats.
Important to note, Justice Janet has not ruled on anything as this moment, so the idea that we could be weeks away from an impeachment when there has been no decision whatsoever.
Like we say, just a sleepy little flyover state where nothing happens. Wisconsin.
Oh, get out of here. I hate that. All right, Molly, this is sort of fun.
We just always want to stay in national headlines, Dylan. That is our goal as Wisconsin, is to have the messiest, wildest politics.
Oh, I don't like this negative talk about the state. This is not our fault. It's our politicians' fault, and one day it'll be fixed. But hopefully not soon, because we like covering it. Which is the worst reason to have a dysfunctional government. But that's our stance here at CityCast. Keep it chaotic so we got something to talk about.
That is the news business. Dylan Brogan, the business you're in. On that note.
See you next week, Molly.
Bye.
That's all for today here on CityCast Madison. Bianca Martin is your host. This week, the podcast was produced by A.K.L. Moman, Noah Snyderman, Molly Stentz, and me, Dylan Brogan. Our theme music is by Carl Christensen. You can also get more news delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to Madison Minutes, written by newsletter editor Haley Sperling. And if you enjoyed today's show, why not share this podcast with someone who would be interested to know that the last and only person to be impeached by the Wisconsin Assembly was Circuit Judge Levi Hubble back in 1853. He was acquitted by the state Senate. See you back here Monday morning with more news from around the city.